Hey guys, we're back. Happy New Year. We have a lot of stuff to talk about this week. Wildcard weekend was nothing anybody would have expected. Personally, I don't know my count in the series, but for my personal picks, I was definitely I didn't do good at all. I don't know about you, Alex, if you did good or not.
No, a lot of people, a lot of prediction analysts were way off this one. A lot of underdogs showing up to the games and actually beating the home field advantage, which is not much you see in the playoffs.
So, to explain what we're going to do for our recap this week, since we had no idea of knowing that New England would lose to Buffalo or to Miami in Week 17, we are going to give a point for people correctly guessing if their team switched in. For example, a lot of us chose Philadelphia to switch out, but I believe the only analyst that chose Seattle to switch out with San Fran was me. So you'll get a point if you correctly chose the right team to switch out in the seeding, but if you did not correctly guess the teams in there, there's no way to gauge if you were correct or not because those teams didn't end up playing. So we're going to get to you with a few play coverage right now.
All right, guys, for the first play here, we got Patriots versus the Titans. Tom Brady in the back of his own end zone, 15 seconds left. He's lining up right here. We're getting ready. He's going to throw the ball into single coverage with Mohamed Sanu. The ball's going to get tipped up in the air. Logan Ryan's going to get the pick, who dropped one earlier in the game. Takes this one to the house, the game sealer. The score of that game was 21-13. The Titans move on in an upset versus the Patriots. All right, guys, a key play of this Seattle-Philadelphia game, the Carson Wentz injury, a controversial hit on Jadeveon Clowney, as we see here. He's going to come down. Carson Wentz is going to dive, and then Jadeveon Clowney's going to come right over top of him. One of the biggest plays impactful in this game as the starting QB goes out again for Philly in the playoffs. They never seem to get any luck, but Seattle will move on in that game, and they'll move on to the divisional round.
So as we see here in the Minnesota-New Orleans game, something no one could have seen here coming, Kirk Cousins is going to line up. They're playing man press on Adam Thielen. He's going to throw over his shoulder, and it's a simple seam route where the cornerback is going to get burnt, which sets them up on the 1 yard line in overtime to get that first possession touchdown that would clinch the game for them, where Kirk Cousins put it right over his shoulders for him, and perfect play. So as we can see here, a very controversial play. He's going to take the kickoff, gives himself away, the returner does. Buffalo sees that as an opportunity to grab the ball as it's dead, and the official was not up to date with the rule changes in the NFL right now. So Buffalo takes this touchdown, assuming that they would have scored 6 here. But there was a rule change where you don't have to signal. You can just take the ball in the end zone, and as long as you give yourself away, no touchdown Buffalo, they changed that call.
All right, guys, for the playoff picture heading to the divisional round. For the NFC side, we got Minnesota going up to San Fran, the 6-1 seed. For their NFC game, we have the 5-2 seed Seattle going to Green Bay.
For the AFC, we have Baltimore, number 1 seed. They came off the first round bye. They're playing Tennessee, the 6th seed. And then we also have Houston at the 4th, going into Arrowhead Stadium, playing the number 2 AFC seed, Kansas City Chiefs. And now, let's hear from our teacher and student expert analysts.
If it did happen with New Orleans playing Minnesota, obviously I think New Orleans is going to win the Super Bowl.
But we're going to stay with New Orleans beating Minnesota in the wild card rounds.
I'm obviously going to be picking New Orleans here. Minnesota does not have another miracle within them. New Orleans 28-21.
Their offense is clicking on all cylinders. Definitely see New Orleans beating Minnesota there.
New Orleans, Minnesota. After Drew Brees' historic night last night, I don't think New Orleans is going to be stopped.
I do think Dallas will beat Philly. Philly won't even make it in the playoffs.
I think the Cowboys could make a serious run.
Switch that out for Philly. I think Philly's going to beat out Dallas for that playoff spot. But San Fran's obviously going to destroy them. I'm going to go 21-7.
That's going to be an easy game, probably 31-17. Seattle winning that one.
I'm picking Philly to jump in there. I would take San Fran to beat to beat Philly in the first round.
I'm going to stay with Buffalo. Buffalo will defeat Houston and move on up.
Houston over Buffalo.
I'm gonna go Buffalo 28-14.
Buffalo wins against Houston. We'll say 28-21.
So I'm going to pick Houston over Buffalo, and then finally,
Mr. Benoski coming back to you after last week's football games. I was a little bit off. I had New Orleans, and they had them to win and win the Super Bowl. That's not going to happen. So let's change it up. So with 1 week in the books, we have this week's playoff games, and I think with pretty big certainty, I can call the NFC. You're going to have San Francisco going to winning the championship there and going to the Super Bowl. And now the other thing was the Seattle and the Green Bay game. That was a tough one to pick. Seattle's tough, Green Bay's tough, but I'm going to tell you, when you go into Lambeau Field and try to win, it ain't going to happen. So I see Green Bay playing San Francisco for the NFC Championship, with finally San Francisco making the Super Bowl, as I said a little bit ago. And in the AFC, I think it's a little bit tougher. I think they're playing for the Super Bowl championship. Now that New Orleans is gone, I think you see Baltimore and Kansas City both winning this week. And I think when it comes down to is who's going to be playing San Francisco in the Super Bowl. And basically it's not who's going to be playing them, but who's going to be beating San Francisco in the Super Bowl. And personally, I believe it's going to be Kansas City. I think Kansas City will play Baltimore, and they will beat Baltimore. I think Baltimore's a little overhyped. They come from a division of weak teams. Unfortunately, my team's in that, so I think a lot of people think they're good. They're really not as good as people think they are. Lamar Jackson's okay, but at the end of the day, Mahomes will be carrying that trophy out as an MVP in the Super Bowl. You got it. You heard it first here.
so obviously Drew Brees didn't get my memo, and he and Sean Payton were misfiring on a few things, and the Saints are not going to the Super Bowl, obviously. Where was my mind? Minnesota beats them every year on the last crazy play at the end, and all New Orleans fans will now have 6 more months to complain about one call again. So let's take a look at this week's games. Number 1, Tennessee at Baltimore. I think this is going to be closer than people think. I'm sticking with Baltimore, but Mike Vrabel has Tennessee firing on all cylinders. Kudos to him for knocking off his former coach, Bill Belichick, and the rest of Patriot Nation, which isn't very big anyhow. Next, we have Houston at KC. Houston battled hard to win that game last week, which I thought they would win it more handedly, but they did not. So them going into Arrowhead, I think, is a tough task. I'm going with Kansas City over Houston, big. Plus, Kansas City has Andy Reid on their side. Andy Reid beats Bill O'Brien any day. Sorry, Penn State fans, on that one. Next, let's go to NFC. We have Minnesota at San Fran. Minnesota, to me, is a sleeper in this. And I don't know that they're going to beat San Fran. However, I think they're going to make that game close. I'm trying not to pick chalk like Mr. Minoski, but you know what? I'll go out on a limb. Minnesota knocks off San Fran. And let's go for Seattle at Green Bay. We have Aaron Rodgers, who got his coach fired. Aaron Rodgers, who petitioned for them to pick more defensive players in the draft. They did both of those things. Now it's Aaron Rodgers. The ball's in his court. Is he going to do it? Is he going to make a Super Bowl run? It's all up to him right now. I see him getting by Seattle and winning. So I have Baltimore, Kansas City, Minnesota, and Green Bay.
What's up, football fanatics? Mr. Snyder back here with week 2 of the NFL playoffs to make my picks. I must say I'm a little embarrassed with my first round wild card weekend. My 2 Super Bowl picks are already eliminated. I picked New England and New Orleans to make it to the dance, but it was a pretty crazy week last week. 3 of the 4 underdogs won. and 3 of the 4 were not only underdogs, but they were road dogs, and they came out victorious. So I think we're going to get back to, normality here with the second round. In the AFC, we have Tennessee at Baltimore. I'm going to pick the Ravens. Lamar Jackson is just a bit too much for that Tennessee team. They had a big upset last week, but they're not going to be able to do it 2 weeks in a row. The other AFC game, we have Houston at Kansas City. Once again, Houston snuck by last week. They're not going to be able to go on the road into a tough environment like Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, just that 1-2 punch right there. They're going to come out. And I think both of those games are going to be a pretty big point differential. I'm going to say both those games are won by 2 touchdowns. I think Kansas City and Baltimore not only win, but dominate. Over to the NFC, I think you're going to have some more competitive games. But once again, I'm going to go with the home field advantage. Minnesota at San Francisco. I think it's going to be a competitive game, but I think San Francisco is going to win a close one. I'm going to take them by a field goal. And lastly, Seattle at Green Bay. I'm going to go with the home field advantage in the Packers. Aaron Rodgers, I think this might be his opportunity to get back to the Super Bowl. And I'm going to pick Aaron Rodgers to beat the Seahawks by a touchdown. Looking into the future, like I said, I lost my 2 Super Bowl picks, but I'll just make a prediction. I'll put Mr. Bozella face on here second, and change my picks for the 4th time. But I'm going to pick Green Bay, and I'm going to go with Kansas City to make it to the Super Bowl. And I'm going to take Kansas City and Andy Reid to win the big game. So good luck to all teams in the playoffs, and enjoy watching.
Hey guys, Big Al here with your divisional round playoff picks. Last week with the wild card weekend was a crazy weekend. Nobody expected anything about that, so I'm not ashamed about my picks. Let's get into this week. So AFC game, we got Tennessee at Baltimore. I'm going with Baltimore here, no question. Lamar Jackson's not going to be able to get me stopped. I'm going 21-7. Next, we got Houston at Kansas City. A little bit of a closer matchup there with Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes, but I still picking Kansas City. I'm going to go 21-14. Next, we got the NFC. We got Minnesota at San Fran. Minnesota pulling off that miracle last week. Don't think it's going to happen this week. I'm going San Fran. I'm going to go 21-10. Next, we got Seattle at Green Bay. I'm actually going to go with a little upset here. I think Seattle's going to come into Green Bay. Russell Wilson going to defeat the Green Bay Packers. Packers have won ugly all season. I don't see that happening here. Let's go Seattle. I'm going to go 28-21. There's your divisional round picks. We'll see you guys next week.
Well, might not have done good last week, but I will say I definitely did better than the rest of the analysts. I was probably the only person to predict that Penn State would beat Memphis in the Cotton Bowl, so I have that going for me. Now, looking on to next week here, the games that we have in the AFC at least is we have Tennessee versus Baltimore. As a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, it pains me to even think that Baltimore is going to go to the Super Bowl. But to be honest with you, I don't see Tennessee ever in any situation beating Baltimore. I'm going to go with Baltimore, obviously. It's going to be a high-scoring affair. Tennessee is not going to be able to control Lamar Jackson. I'm going to go with a score of 27 Baltimore, Tennessee 7. For the rest of the other AFC game, Kansas City and Houston, I picked Buffalo to beat Houston last week, and Deshaun Watson performed with a call that should have gotten Buffalo that touchdown, that kick return. Buffalo should have had a touchdown there that would have put them ahead 20 points. But for this week, I can't bet against Kansas City here either. Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, they're a perfect duo right now in Arrowhead Stadium. Kansas City is going to win that game against Houston. It's going to be close probably. I'd say like maybe 24-14. Now in the NFC, we have Minnesota and San Fran. San Fran has been my pick for the Super Bowl, other than New Orleans, who I'm not even going to talk about that. San Fran has been my pick here from the get-go. I picked them to switch out a few weeks ago with seeding. So I'm going to say San Fran's going to definitely beat Minnesota. Kirk Cousins cannot perform against San Francisco's defense and Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm going to say San Fran is going to beat them probably 28-10. Lastly, in the NFC, we have Seattle and Green Bay. Personally, I love Green Bay. I always have, even though they beat Pittsburgh in the Super Bowl a few years back. I love Aaron Rodgers. I'm a big fan. And going into Lambeau Field, I think that Seattle is going to have a tough time. But I'm gonna go out on a limb here, just because Green Bay hasn't been winning by good margins this season. They've been looking pretty rough. And I definitely was surprised to watch Marshawn Lynch and his performance last week. I think that his retirement was more of an injury check on himself, so that the league wouldn't ask questions. He knows that he can play. He knows he can perform. Russell Wilson and Seattle's defense has always performed too. I'm going to go with Seattle here, and I'm going to say that they're going to beat Green Bay in a very close game. I'm going to say maybe a field goal to score it off. We'll call it at 23-20 would be the score there. So we'll see what happens next week. We obviously know I'm going to be right. After looking at the recap, after looking at the plays that we reviewed, and giving our picks for the divisional round, we will check in with you guys next week after stuff happens. Hopefully our picks are right. I definitely think Alex is going to get more wrong than he did last week.
We'll see about that, Dylan, as I am the most expert here. But I hope you guys enjoy the division round games, and we'll see you next week.